get started.
Okay, great. Again, thank you all for coming. And sorry about having to reschedule the last meeting. We are recording this and you will have access to the recording after I get it downloaded, saved, and uploaded and all that good stuff. What I just put into chat is a PDF link to the Google Slides. I will also send that out when I send out the recording. Just to give you guys a heads up, the presentation portion of this should last about, I'm hoping within 45 minutes. So there will be ample time for answering questions. And I know that there's going to be factions that think this is, oh, too confusing, too complicated. And there's going to be other factions that says, oh, this is too easy, you're wasting my time. To both factions, I am sorry. I've tried to cut a swath into making this understandable. First of all, I am not an expert in Google Workspace shared drives. It's just something that I volunteered to look into and ended up adopting. So I've tried to make this understandable. I understand if you have questions. If during the presentation you have a question that you're like, well, I can't go on until this is answered, put that into chat. And Pia, if you could keep an eye on those, let me know. Because I don't know how much visibility I'll have into everything when I'm sharing the presentation. And but if you can manage to hang on, we're going to open it up for lots of questioning afterwards. We good with that?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Then I will start sharing. Okay, here we go. So today we're here to talk about migrating to Google Workspace shared drives from our current use of Google Drive, My Drive. So why are we here? We're here to learn about it, shared drives and Google Drives, and specifically so that you can help your team migrate to Google Workspace shared drives from the way that currently files are shared. And then hopefully you can also assist them in moving their files into your team shared drive and help them with problems using Google Drive. So over in the right-hand corner, you see that you're actually kind of the person in the center for your team. And I will serve as the center for the rest of us. So if you run into things that you've looked at and can't resolve, then let me know. But otherwise, try to troubleshoot for your team, and that will save me a little bit of work. So the agenda today is we're going to cover why we're doing this, how we're going to do this, what are we doing? Maybe I ordered that wrong, and best practices and noteworthy mentions. So this is what our current file sharing looks like before migration. Everybody has their little My Drives up in the cloud. and we're sharing files between each of our iDrives to everybody else's My Drive. And incidentally, this is what your brain looks like on drugs. And after the migration, this is what we're going to look like. All files will be shared through SanDiego350 shared drives. So why are we migrating? We're migrating because file ownership, once we've migrated to Google Workspace shared drives, belongs to SanDiego350 organization rather than to individuals, which they currently do. And this would be regardless of who creates the files. It provides a central location and makes it easier for members to locate and access files. Currently we share files, and unless we organize them in our My Drive, they're really hard to find. You can look through your, shared with me, and like mine is a gazillion pages long. So access to files for each team should become easier to locate. It's easier to share with specific groups of members. And also, once members leave, SanDiego350 retains access and ownership to those files. Nothing is lost if someone leaves the organization, cancels their Google account, deletes their Google Drive, loses their password, etc. And SanDiego350 can back up all files. So what exactly is Google Workspace? First of all, it used to be called G Suite until, I don't know, like maybe 4 to 6 months ago. Google's changed their product name a few times over the years. I don't know why. So Google Workspace is a web-based set of productivity applications from Google. It's very much what you have access to with your Google account. You get your Docs and your calendar and your Gmail, Google Groups, etc. Only this is enterprise version of their product. So basically it's designed for nonprofits, universities, profit-oriented companies. And again, the difference between your version of Google Apps and Google Workspace is that the organization retains ownership and control. So this is a hosted services that lets businesses, schools, and institutions use all those Google products. And they're based, instead of google.com, you basically use your organization's domain like SanDiego350.org. So what's the difference between My Drive and shared drives? Again, My Drive is your personal stuff. Shared drive belongs to the organization. So both My Drive and shared drives are accessed from Google Drive. This gets a little redundant, but basically, again, the difference is personal individual offerings versus business offerings. And again, the big difference is under My Drive, you own the files that you create, and you do not own files that are shared with you. And with shared drives, the organization owns all the files. So how do we access My Drive versus shared drive? Well, you just go to drive.google.com, or you use that little apps icon and select Google Drive from it. And what you'll see on your screen is something that says My Drive. Let me get a pointer going here. There it is. So you'll have My Drive, and then below it, you'll see shared drives. And if you click the arrow to the left of either My Drive or shared drive, that kind of opens up all the individual shared drives that have been shared with you. I have a bunch of them because I have a lot of shared drives. You will probably only have a few. Again, you just click on this little arrow and it'll just kind of open everything up for you. So how do we migrate? First of all, it doesn't have to be done all at once. Take your time, get to feeling comfortable with it before starting to use your to start migrating. But the first thing to do is to start using your team shared drive. So for new files that are being created and things like that, go ahead and store them. Organize your folder structure the way you want it in your team's shared drive and start using that. You can still link to other files that are not in the shared drives, and then gradually we'll get it all moved over in time. The easiest way for you to get other people's files into your team shared drive is to, rather than to explain to them how to move files and things like that, just have them transfer file ownership to you. Once the file ownership has been transferred to you, then you can just move them easily from your My Drive at that point into your team shared drive. And then the link to that file remains the same. So you don't have to update any of your documents, like your team's agenda that links these files. That won't have to change. The other way to do it is to, so once you have the file ownership transferred to you, then you can easily move your files. Now, if you cannot get people, like, let's say there's just one file that I think I emailed the owner, but they haven't, I think they left the organization a while ago and I haven't heard back. So in cases where you can't get the owner to transfer the file ownership to you, then your alternative is to make a copy of the file. and then move the copy into the shared drives. Now, when you make copies of the file, the link to the document changes because there's the original file and then there's the copied file. So your documents such as your agendas and stuff like that, that link to the original files, those will need to be changed so that they link to the new copied file. So hopefully you can get the, use the file, the transfer file ownership and then move it because it requires less work for existing documents. But if you do have to make copies, then we want to take the extra step of updating document references, and we'll cover that through the rest of the presentation. And then, oh yeah, updating document references, that would be updating your agendas and stuff like that to point to the new location of the new file. Until you get all those, because oftentimes a single file may be linked in multiple files and you don't know where they all are. So to deal with that, we're going to update the source file with a link of the new copied file. And I think that should cover all your situations. I mean, if you run into a situation that I'm not covering, let me know, we can work it out. Okay, so this is your basic decision tree for taking actions that, and we basically covered that in the previous slide, but this is how it goes. First, are there any My Drive team files? If not, then hooray, you're done. So if there are, select the target file. Is the file owned by you? If it's not, you email the owner, ask them to move the file or transfer ownership to you. If it is owned by you, go ahead and move the file. And then the dot here moves to A. So you go back up to A up here at the top and say, are there any My Drive team files? So let's take the path of the file is not owned by you. You email the owner and ask them to either move the file or transfer file ownership. And I think it might be easier to just, I've got a little video of how to transfer file ownership if they don't understand how to move files, but you can figure that out. So you ask them to transfer file ownership. Do they move the file? If they do, yay, you're done. Go back up to the top. If they don't move the file, can they transfer ownership to you? Do they do that? If yes, then you go to B, and B says, then you move the file. So now if they don't move the file or transfer ownership, then you copy the file, update the source file and document links. And then you go back down to this little A circle and back up to the top. So the process itself is not that convoluted. I mean, it is fairly straightforward on how we decide to take action. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is, create a new folder structure in your shared team drive. Currently, we can't, there are some kind of pitfalls with Google Workspace shared drive right now. I think they're working to address some of them, but as of yet, we can't move folders from My Drive into shared drive. So it has to be a file move rather than a folder move. So what you can do is you can duplicate your team's current folder structure in the new team shared drive. And during that process, maybe try to spiffy it up a bit, make it a little bit organized, however you think is best to organize your team's folder structure. So, we're going to take the opportunity to reorganize if we can. Hold on. Wait a second. And let me see what the next file is.
This is how you create folders under either My Drive.
Here we go. I am sorry, folks. Let me go through that again. Get my mouse back. Okay, so this is a little video about transferring file ownership. Let me know if you guys can hear okay. I'll start playing and then I'll pause it to find out if everybody can hear this okay.
This is how you create folders under either My.
Can everybody hear?
It was soft for me.
It was soft for me.
A little bit quiet.
Couldn't quite hear.
Okay, hold on. Let's try that again. I just turned up the volume.
Drive or shared drives.
How does
In
that?
this example,
That sounds a
we're
little
gonna-
soft to
This
me.
is how you create folders.
Well, when I play it in the presentation itself, it sounds fine, folks.
Hey, Marie, it might be when you come into the presentation mode, there's a little thing.
Yeah,
that
I
says
checked that. I checked
Is
that.
checked. Huh,
Yeah.
That's odd.
Yeah.
Under either My Drive
Is that better?
or shared drives.
No?
No.
Still really soft.
I can hear it fine, so I don't, I don't know.
Hey, under your Zoom control, if you click on the little caret thing next to the microphone, and then go into audio settings, which is the last setting, you might be able to adjust your speaker volume. There's a slide bar on that, and that might be helpful.
Well, will that make you really loud? Or that's just making the video really loud?
Well, I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
I was gonna say, are you gonna be blasting if we do that?
Well, I'm not quite sure. I can try to talk quieter though.
Okay.
Where is the switch, Marie?
Okay, there's a little caret, looks like a kind of a triangle thing next to the microphone in the lower left-hand corner of your Zoom window.
Oh,
Okay, the
okay.
first option up should be audio settings. And that opens up a window and you should see a setting for your speaker and your mic. And there should be a slide bar under the speaker to adjust your volume.
I don't see a triangle.
Okay, it's like a caret. Okay, look for an arrow next to your microphone.
Oh, okay, got it.
It did make you louder, so I didn't raise it too much, but I will when you
Okay.
play the
No,
video.
I can turn down the gain on my microphone. Like, can everybody still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I can turn it down even further. So let me know, because I can adjust my mic if you can boost up your speaker volume to hear better. Has everybody done that? I'm
Yes.
gonna play it again for a sec.
This is how you create folders.
Yes.
Is that
under
better?
Either My Drive or shared drives.
It is better.
In this example, we're going to
Am I too loud?
folders under
No.
shared
No.
drives.
Okay, so we will start back from the beginning.
David is loud and saying yes. I'm probably loud too.
Yes, it basically boosts your speaker volume. And so that sounds like it's for both your the computer audio and people's speakers. I mean, their microphones. Hold on. Okay. Oh, okay, here we go.
This is how you create folders under either My Drive or shared drives. In this example, we're going to create folders under
Oh,
shared
this is the
drives.
wrong
First,
video I linked.
navigate
Oh.
to your team drive.
This is weird. Okay. Let me stop sharing and I will share the right video. Don't you love that? Okay. Give me a second to pull it up. Oh, and that could be why it's quieter, because I remember the earlier videos I made were much lower volume. So. Oh, no, this is where we're supposed to be. Hold on.
So should we
That's
lower
right,
our
we-
speaker so it's not
Pardon?
extra loud when you come back?
Oh, am I too loud?
No, I'm saying, will that video that you play, if it's a different one, come back really loud now that we adjusted our speaker?
No, it should still be the same, but it might be louder. Actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, we are at the right point. I just forgot I had this video in there. Let me share again, if I can find the Zoom window. Sloppy, right? No, future videos may be a little louder, so you might want to adjust down for
This
that.
is how you create folders under either My Drive or shared drives. In this example, we're going to create folders under shared drives. First, navigate to your team drive. Now open up that drive. I can create folders either under the primary drive or under one of the subfolders. To create a folder under the primary drive, select it and click on New. Select Folder and then name your folder. We can see that the new folder has been created. To create a subfolder within this newly created folder, I would select it, again click on New, again select Folder. Now if I open up that folder, I'll see that the newly created subfolder is there. That's all there is to it. This is how you create.
Okay, so these are just some slides to show you the same thing. Over here in your left sidebar menu, you can see I have got Marie's test drive highlighted, and then there is the second folder that I created, the My subfolder, exists. If you take a look at the center top of your screen, this is kind of your navigation that shows you where you are in Google Drive. So since Marie's test drive is selected, you see Marie's test drive. If I had my subfolder selected in blue, then at the top you would see Marie's test drive, my folder, my subfolder. So that's kind of your easy navigation area of where you are under Google Drive. And so again, in the top area, and also over to your left, if you have your information screen enabled, which is the little blue circle in the upper right hand portion of your screen. So that these are also other places that tells you where you are in your shared drives or My Drive. And again, just select the folder or the drive that you want to create the new folder in. Click New. Select Folder, enter the name, and you're done. So next, which I thought this was what we were going to talk about, is the transferring of file ownership. So if you don't own the document, have the owner make you the owner so that you can move the document into your shared team drive folders. And next up, we have a real quick video on how to do that. And the volume on this should be louder. Like I said, the set I made earlier were really low. Hi, everyone. In this brief video, we're going to cover how to transfer file ownership from one Google account to another. Now on this screen, you'll see that I have a file selected. Now this file belongs to one of my other Google accounts, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner. If you take a look at the bottom of the screen at the arrow, you can see that this file is currently not shared. So in order to transfer file ownership, you first must share the file, and then you transfer file ownership in 2 different steps. To share the file, we just click on the share icon and type in the email address of the person we want to share it with. Now, if we refresh the page, and look at the bottom of the screen, you can see that this file is now being shared.
Marie, can I interrupt?
With another
How do you
account.
get that right-hand panel?
We can cover that. There's a little information icon That I'll cover that after
Oh,
we finish
okay.
watching the video, okay?
I see that. Yep, got it.
Hi everyone. Okay, to share the file, we just click on the share icon. If we refresh the page, and look at the bottom of the screen, you can see that this file is now being shared with another account. Now we want to transfer ownership to that second account. To do that, we select the share icon again. This time we select who we want to transfer file ownership to and click the downward arrow next to editor on the right of the screen. Scroll down until you see make owner and select that. Answer yes and click done. First you'll see that the ownership has already been transferred. The second account now is the owner and the original owner is now just an editor. And that's all you have to do. Thank you so much. And hi everyone. In this brief
Marie,
video,
I
we're
didn't
going
see.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let me stop sharing and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, because
I've
you
got the
find
right-
out.
I don't know how to get to the transfer ownership line that you had there in the middle.
Hold on.
Go on
I
ahead,
think-
I'll get it later.
Anne, I think you might have been saying the file name because I was kind of confused at that at first. The file was called transfer ownership, but you didn't
Correct.
have a chance to transfer
Oh.
until the very end.
Okay.
Right, it's just a file name. So hold on, let me go back to here. We want to transfer ownership to that second account. This transfer file ownership is
Yeah.
just a file.
Okay.
I just called it because that was the example that I was using. I use a few different example file names, but the file name is immaterial, is a process. And then if you take a look, hold on, let me show you real quick. Okay, you see this area that I'm highlighting? The eye with the blue circle around it?
Mhm.
Okay, that tells me when it's soft blue, it tells me I'm in information mode, and that's going to display everything in the right side of your screen. If you were to click on it, it would turn from pale blue to white, and then this area of your screen would disappear. And later on, after we get through this, I can show you everything on the right-hand side of the screen and what that tells you about a file, because that is good to know kind of information. Okay. So again, with the file selected, you just hit shared files icon. Click here to make the person an owner. And yes, I do have multiple accounts. Okay, so now we're going to cover move files. So when we move files from my drive to shared drives, we don't need to update documents that refer to or link to that moved file because it remains the same. And the moved file's URL or location remains the same. So here's a quick video on how to move files. I think I covered 2 different ways. Let's see. Hello, everyone. In this brief video, we're going to cover how to move a file from your Google Drive My Drive to a Google Drive Shared Drive. In this screen, you'll see that I am at Google Drive page. First thing I'm going to do is click the arrow in the left sidebar menu next to My Drive to expose the folders that I have there. I'm going to select this A temp folder where there are 2 documents
that I'm going to move to a shared drive. So with this selected, scroll down and click the arrow next to shared drives. In this case, I am going to move the documents into Marie's shared drive, and the target folder is my temp folder. So the first way we're going to move a file is I simply select the file that is in my drive, a temp folder, and drag it into the left sidebar menu where my temp folder is highlighted. Select move, and that file has been moved. If we select my temp folder under Marie's shared drive, we'll see that the Google Sheet has been moved there. A second way to move a file is from within the file itself. So under my drive, a temp folder, I'm going to open up temp.1. Now, in the upper left-hand corner, I'm going to select File. And let me make this a little bigger for you. So under File, I'm going to scroll down until I see the Move option. I select that, and what you'll see displayed is where the current file lives. So it lives in a temp folder. Now, to the left of that, there is a leftward pointing arrow, and that helps navigate where you are in your filing system. So clicking it once, I get back to my drive, which is where a temp folder lives. But I actually wanted to move it to a shared drive, so I'm going to click the leftward arrow again. Now I see that shared drives is an option. I'm going to click the right arrow to go to shared drives. Now I'm going to scroll down until I see Marie's shared drive. Again, I'm going to click the right arrow. And now I'm going to look for my destination folder, which is my temp folder. So I click the right arrow next to my temp folder, and this is where I want to move the document to. I select Move here, and then confirm that you want to move. Okay, and basically it tells you that it's been moved. Now if we go back to my drive, we'll see that a temp folder now does not contain either of the files that it originally did. But if we scroll down to shared drives and select my temp folder, you can see that the files now reside under my temp folder in Marie's shared drive. So those are two ways that you can move a file from your My Drive into a shared drive. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Okay, so again, we talked about if you can't get the file's owner to either move the file themselves into shared drive, and they might not be able to if they don't have permissions to the your team's shared drive if they're no longer with SanDiego350, and you can't get them to transfer ownership, then you have to make copies of the file. So we talk about two ways to make copies. You can copy files directly from your My Drive page into the destination team drive folder, or you can make a copy from within the document itself into in My Drive. And in that way, you can optionally preserve comments and suggestions that are made on the original file. So we'll cover both of those ways. I do want to make a point is that we really don't want to create shortcuts from My Drive to shared drives. Now, if you have two team drives, like there's the CAP shared drive and then food and soil shared drive. Now, if there's a file in the CAP team drive that food and soil likes to use, then you would want to create a shortcut into the food and soil a shared drive so that it's easier to find the document. But we really want to avoid shortcuts from My Drive into shared drives because again, you don't own the file, it's just a link to it, and it can disappear on you.
And then again, when we make copies of files, we're going to need to update documents that reference the link of the copied files. So now we're going to see a short video on the 2 ways to copy files. Hello, everyone. In this brief video, we're going to cover 2 different ways to copy a file from Google Drive My Drive to a Google Drive shared drive. In this window, we can see that I am currently in Google Drive. The first thing I want to do is locate the files that I want to make copies of. You can do this directly from the search bar, or if you know where it's located, you can navigate to it in the left sidebar menu. So I click the arrow next to My Drive to expose the folders, and I know that the files I want to target are in a temp folder, so I highlight that. In a temp folder, we have 2 files, sample file 1 and sample file 2. The first method we're going to use to make a copy of a file is directly from the Google Drive interface. So here we select a file, and you can either right-click on it and select Make a Copy, or you can click on the More icon and select Make a Copy. Using this method creates the file immediately in the same folder. Now, the one thing that will not happen when you make a copy of a file this way is that if your original file has comments or suggestions, those are not transferred to the copy of file. And then if I want to then get this copy of the file into a shared drive, I would have to navigate to shared drives, click the arrow in the left sidebar menu next to shared drives to expose the shared drives, the destination shared drive that I want the file to go into. Now the folder I want to target is my temp folder. So I would select the copy of file and move it into my temp folder. The second method that we want to show of how to create a copy of a file is from within the file itself. This method will preserve your comments and suggestions from the original file into the copied file. So I opened up the file, and as you can see, this file both has comments and suggestions, and those are what I want to preserve in the copied file. I go to the upper left-hand corner and select File, and then from the options I select Make a Copy. What displays is what the target, the destination name of the copied file is. Here they have a defaulted to copy of sample file 2. And then the next thing you'll see is the folder, the destination folder where this copy of the file will be copied to. First, I'm going to get rid of copy of. Next, I'm going to select the folder. So again, a temp folder is under My Drive, and that's not where I want this copy of file to go to. I click the arrow next to the folder in the upper left-hand corner, and now I see that I am currently at My Drive, and that's not where I want to be. I want to be in a shared drive. So I click the leftward pointing arrow again. Here I am, where now I see that shared drives is an option. I click the right pointing arrow on the right side of the window to go to shared drives. I scroll down and look for the target drive, which is, in this case, is Marie's shared drive, and I click the right pointing arrow again. Now I'm within Marie's shared drive. Next, I'm going to select the destination folder. Again, I'm going to click the right arrow next to my temp folder. Now I'm going to click select to say that this is the folder where I want the copied file to reside. So now I can see that the name of the file is going to be sample file 2, is going to be placed in my temp folder, and then I'm going to click copy comments and suggestions to preserve the comments and suggestions. Next I click OK. And there you have it. If I go back to Google Drive, I can go down to Marie's shared drive and my temp folder. I open up sample file 2 and I see that indeed the comments and suggestions have been preserved. So there you have it. Thank you so much.
Mary, I'm not sure. I don't think I can hear you.
Yep, I can't hear you either.
Oh, sorry. I had my mic turned off. I was sneezing earlier. Okay, so I wanted to say the reason that the copy file method works is when you create a copy of a file that somebody else owns, you become the owner of the copied file. So once you own it, you can move it and do whatever you want with it. Okay, so remember we talked about needing to update document references. So when you do the copy file method, you need to update links to the original file that you have, like in your agenda document or whatever document, with the new link of the copied file. Because your documents that reference the original document still references the original document rather than the copied document. So until you can find and hunt down, where all these files live, which may take, forever to do or something like that, the way to safeguard that is to go ahead and modify the original file with a link to the new copied file. So we're going to cover that real quickly with another video. Here we go. Hello, everyone. In this brief video, we're going to discuss updating document references. In an earlier video, we covered 2 different methods for copying a file from Google Drive My Drive to Google Drive Shared Drives. The reason we would use this method in transitioning over to shared drives is that if the original owner cannot or will not transfer ownership of their original file to you, we still need those files transitioned over to shared drives. So in this screen, we're looking at Google Drive. Now, when you create a copy of a file from My Drive into shared drives, the original file still exists and still has the original URL. Now, in your document, say your agenda document or whatever else, you may have that original file linked. When you locate those out-of-date references, you want to update them with the new file, which is under My Drive, under shared drives. However, a file may be linked in multiple documents, and it may take a while to hunt them all down. So this is how we're going to make sure that when people click on links to outdated files, that they know that a new file has been created and that's the file that you need to work on. So the first thing we're going to do is open up My Drive by clicking on the arrow in the left sidebar menu. The original files in this example reside under a temp folder. Now go down to Shared Drives and click the arrow next to it to open up your shared drives. Now we're going to locate where the new copied files live. In this case, they live under Marie's shared drive, My Temp folder. So I select that. Now we're going to run through 2 examples. The first one being sample file 2, which is a copy of a sample file 2 from a temp folder under My Drive. So I select the file and right click and select Get Link. Select Copy Link, then Done. Now we go back up to the original file, which is under My Drive A temp folder. We open up sample file 2. Now here's where we type in our message, and we want this to be nice and bold and clear. Type in something like old file do not use, use new file, and then paste in the location, the URL of the new file. Again, we want to make sure this is nice and visible, so I'm going to select it and then highlight it. So now when somebody clicks on a document link in your agenda or whatnot that hasn't been updated to reflect that the file has been copied into shared drives, they'll see this message and know to click on this link. Let's repeat this process for sample sheet 1. So first I'm going to go grab the location of sample sheet 1 from shared drives. Again, I right click on sample sheet 1, click Get Link, copy link, and done. Now I go back up to My Drive and open up the original sample sheet 1. The first thing that we're going to do is select row 1 from the left hand side of the screen. Right click and select Insert Row Above. Now with your cursor in the far left menu, the far left number of rows, you're going to make that row wider. Again, we want this message to be nice and clear and visible. Again, we type in something like old file do not use, new file, and paste in the link that you copied previously. Now in this case, I'm going to make the font bigger so that no one can miss it. I am going to make sure that everybody can see this, and then I'm also again going to highlight it. So there we go. That's how we're going to make sure that people are working in the right documents until we get all the links in the existing documents updated. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to pause a minute. Does anybody have questions? Okay, moving on. So we're going to talk a little bit about best practices. You want to avoid granting access to your shared drives and the folders using individual emails. It can get really onerous if, let's say you didn't use Google Groups. Okay, so instead you're listing all the individual emails. And this other group that I work with does not use Google Groups, and I had to list all the individual emails. Well, if you're granting access by individual emails to different folders, files, and whatnot, what happens if that person may not leave in amicable fashion with your organization? You actually would have to hunt through your files to remove them. So it is best practice to use Google Groups when granting permissions. Obviously, if you're sharing with somebody outside your organization, then you may use an individual email. But it is best practice to just stick with the Google Groups. and also only grant people access that's needed. So if somebody only needs to comment on files, you don't need to give them edit access. It just makes sense. They can still make all their suggestions in comment mode, and you don't have to worry about people like deleting bulk, large portions of your document. I mean, you can recover those, but you have to know that they're gone first. And then once again, do not use shortcuts unless the original file is also in one of SanDiego350 shared drives. Okay, so one of the major drawbacks of shared drives is that access permissions of folders and files are inherited from the parent shared drive. Now that's the normal behavior. And what this means is somebody has, but what's different or the defect in Google Workspace shared drive is once they have permission given at the shared drive level, you can't remove or modify that permission for files or folders that reside within that shared drive. So let's say you have, your whole team has access to your team shared drive and they have, edit permissions. Now let's say you create a document that you really don't want people to edit, you want them to view or just comment or something like that. Under the current way that Google Workspace Shared Drive works, we can't do that. So that is, I think, is a major drawback, is something that I think many people have complained about, and I'm hoping that they will resolve it. If your team has a situation where you have a situation like that, that there's certain files that you want your team to have access to, but they don't necessarily need to have, full-blown privileges to. I have made a proposal on how to address that. I've submitted that to Masada, I think like a month or so ago. I haven't heard from her, so I should probably check back. So if you do run into a situation that the current configuration doesn't, handle for you or doesn't, adequately resolve your needs, let me know. We can try to work something out. I don't prefer workarounds, but sometimes, that's just what we have to do until Google fixes their stuff. So this means if somebody has access permission to the building and electrification shared drive, they can't be removed from accessing folders or files within that. Now, if they have access to the shared drive, you can't downgrade their access to comment or view only. But okay, you can always add. So permissions are not, you cannot subtract permissions from the shared drive level. However, you can add. So if you have a file or a folder within a shared drive and you need to share that folder or file with another team, Google group, you can, or with an individual outside SanDiego350, you can. So that's the current way that permissions work. And of course, you can still grant anyone with the link access to your folders and files. Just, be cautious doing that because that releases the file to the whole wide world. And you might want to limit those type of sharing with view or comment only access. Okay, so our next steps is to basically, we need to try to hunt down, all the files that people have that are SanDiego350 related. And what I've looked at, we do have some My Drive, there's a SanDiego350 Public Policy folder under My Drive that I think many of you have shared with you. And currently we have team folders under My Drive that have been shared. But I looked through some of that, and there are an awful lot of files not contained in those folders. So this is going to take time, but the one thing to do is to have your members look through their personal My Drives for documents that aren't contained in the team folders and move those to your team shared drive, or transfer ownership to you, and you can do it. And you want to check to ensure that they are in your team's shared drive. And again, this is just going to be a long drawn out process. You can also, address this as you're looking through your agenda document. You might want to check the links that are in it, for your main documents, and check to see where those files are located. Okay, and this is just a screen that that shows the shared drive access permissions. Gets a little geeky, but you may be interested in this for reference later. So viewer can view all shared drives, files, and folder. A commenter has all viewer access, but they can also comment on files in shared folders. A contributor is one step up from viewer and commenter. They can approve and reject edits in files, create, upload files, create folders in shared files, add people and groups to specific files in shared drives. Content managers, which is, I think the bulk of all, I believe all of you have content manager rights, and that's the default access I grant every team into their team shared drives. And that gives you your contributor, your commenter, your viewer access, plus you can move files and folders within a shared drive. Moving shared drive files and folders into the trash and restore
It's
files
6
and
o'clock.
folders from the trash. Sorry about that. And then manager would be basically the, I think I'm manager for most of our shared drives, and that's just kind of the, it gives me rights that some of you guys don't have, and they're described here. If you find that you can't do something with your current access level, let me know, we can talk about it. And the caveat is Google Workspace is always in production. This is basically software as a service type of software packaging offering, and so they can make changes in the cloud, and then we see it bubble down to our browser. Again, if you run into problems, let me know, and I can help you address them. Okay, thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Heather and Sheridan. Yes, we do have, that is the proposal that I have sent Masada. And I wrote up a little document, went ahead and created, my proposal. I'm just waiting to hear back from her to give the thumbs up before we move ahead, because I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, I asked that right before the slide came up, so sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. Okay, Pia.
So I feel like one of the big things that all of us are going to have to do is the transferring, getting somebody to transfer ownership, especially for us newer volunteers. We might not know the person, so might not know their email. Can you address how to do it? Or in those situations, should we just make a copy?
Oh, well, if they're no longer, I mean, if they might still be in Civi as far as their email goes. And so those of you with Civi access could look there. I don't know how Masada dishes out Civi access. So if you can't find their emails, I can look them up, or well, Pia can also look them up, and I think Joyce can look them up. We can try to extend, an email, to send them an email. I think Joyce and I emailed somebody who's never responded, so I'm trying to figure out what to do about that file. But try reaching out, and if they don't come back to you or something like that, then just proceed with copy. I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time tracking somebody down, just for because chances are if they don't respond to your email, they're not interested. So why put a whole lot of effort into that? Okay, Anne says if you go to share the file, you should see the owner's email. Oh, yeah, that's right. Under shared file, that should give you the owner's email address. Next. Okay, I am going to share my screen again because I want to guide you guys through Google Drive and how you can view different things on the screen and what information that tells you.
I have one other question if no one else does.
Oh, yeah.
This, you did a great job breaking this down and making it seem very easy, but I don't know if anyone's had time to really think about this, but it's a very big, huge project that it feels like insurmountable how big it is, to me at least. how would you recommend we get started? Just start one file at a time, or and should especially for some of the volunteers that may not really know of all the different files, because I know, for instance, the legislative committee has files all over the place.
Right.
So
Here's
it might
my-
be hard to figure out what files are there. Should they start on the agenda and go down the list?
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to suggest. I mean, the first priority is to go ahead and try to create your folder structure in your team shared drive and start using it. You know, so before you even worry about migrating existing files, go ahead and get in the habit of using the new shared drive. That at least prevents more stuff from having to be transferred later. And so I think the agenda is a perfect place to start as far as looking for files that need to get moved over. And when you have, you know, once you open up a link to the file, and let me just go ahead and share my screen with you real quick. Let me find something under my drive. Okay. So when you open up a file and it opens up like the document, okay, if you look in the top of your screen towards the middle, there's a little folder icon. That tells you where this file lives. So if you select that folder icon, you get that image again that, you know, we saw under move files, because you can actually move the file from here. It tells you that this file lives in my PPT co-chair. And so from here, if you own it, you know, you can move it around. You just keep on pressing the leftward arrow until you see shared drives as an option, and then navigate from there to wherever you want to go. Okay, so so that's a great way. And then you can also, you know, take a look at who owns the file from within the, so if you go through your agenda and click on every link and take a look, where does it live and who owns it, then you have an idea of how to deal with that. Okay, now I am going to open up a file.
I think David's got his hand raised.
Oh, okay, sorry, David.
Yeah, I just had a comment because I was working on a document a couple days ago and somebody else was on it reviewing it that I didn't recognize. I hadn't granted any permission to.
Ah.
And now I think it makes sense because you said anyone who has access to a shared drive can go on any document, even if it hasn't been shared with them.
Correct. Access
So-
any permissions at the shared drive level just totally replicates down, and you can't subtract it. So if you want to share something with somebody outside your team organization, don't give them access at the shared drive level, because
Mhm.
that will give them access to everything. And I did notice that, actually. I think I noticed that people have been sharing by let's see if we take a look at, oh, hold on, I have to go over to my other account. Let's see. That looks to be right. And also, I mean, the permission inheritance also works with folders. So if you give somebody permission to a folder like archive or something like that, then any files or subfiles under that they'll have access to.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's take a look at, well, let's just take a look at this file. So this is your, you know, Google Drive, and we're looking at shared drives. Over on the left, you have your left sidebar menu, and that's where you can see all your folders, files, shared drives, and whatnot. And again, up top, this tells you where you are. So this tells me I'm in the SanDiego350 Public Policy team and in the archive folder. Okay, if I want to go back to San Diego Public Policy team, I can just click up there and it directs me to that. No big deal if you're only one level in, but let's say I am in Pia in my little folder. So now you can see that this area, there's a lot more information at the top. It tells you that your path. And so if you want to get back to public policy co-chair folder, then you can just select that or go all the way back to the root of the shared drive. So let's take a look. Then you have the center of your screen. Now in the upper left, upper right-hand corner, there are two icons. One that has the circle with the eye in it that's currently pale blue. That tells me I'm in information mode. Now, if I hover over that, it tells me if I click, I hide the details. So that's what that looks like. I can hide the details of a file. Next to that icon, there's this little grid looking thing. Okay, so if I hover my mouse over it, tells me if I click it, I'm going to see things in grid view. So I click it and all of a sudden things are in grid view. And then the icon changes into more of a list, bullet list like thing. So if I hover my mouse over it, it tells me if I click it, I'm going to go into list view. So I click it, I'm in list view. Now I like keeping the information view on because it tells me information about a file. Like here, it tells me everybody who has been shared with. So if I click on the two more, I'll see that any circle with these little people in it means that it's been shared with a Google group. The rest of these are individual emails. Now, part of that includes people who have actual, manager access. Whereas I said, all the Google groups right now have content manager access. So you can tell who has what type of access and who is being shared with. Whoops, sorry about that. And also, if you look further down, you'll see it'll tell you where the file is located. It'll tell you who the creator actually is, when it was last modified and by who, when it was opened, and when it was created. And then, so those are under the details pane. You can also click activity. And this tells you like, oh, take a look, Marie moved an item into this particular folder. It tells you dates and what's happened to that file. So I always find that handy to know. Questions?
Yeah, let me see if I can put that hand down. Or it's might be a comment, might be a question. I think you said something really important about you can't move folders, but you can move files. So
Correct.
A lot of things that we're dealing with right now is taking stuff from the shared with me version of this, the My Drive, to the new setup. So the files will go to a new folder, and then should we, in that old place, I'm wondering if the best practice is to leave that folder there with a breadcrumb to where the new folder is. If someone's going in looking via folders versus looking at by file.
Yeah, you could stick like a README file into that emptied folder now,
Yeah.
that is your breadcrumb, and link it to the new folder.
Yeah.
Because the problem is that you can't move a folder from My Drive into Google Workspace Shared Drive. Like I said, it's very annoying. I spent a lot of time trying to figure this stuff out, and it's just that the way that you're used to being able to do things under My Drive is not the way it correlates into the Workspace Shared Drives. Does that address that, Bill? But that's a wonderful point. Wonderful.
I think so. I think because that's what we're dealing with a lot is there's two places to place files that look kind of identical right now. And as the files move to one place, just leaving a breadcrumb or a hint of where to go in case you do look by folder versus.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and if I were you, I would name the file something like * readme in all caps, because the asterisk will place it up on the top alphabetically. So it'll be the first file that they see, with README, and hopefully people will get the point of I should read this. Okay, and then I think Pia, do you have something else?
I do, but maybe Anne and Joy should go first.
Okay. Anne, yes, I will share the short videos. Well, they'll be linked in the PDF. In the PDF file, if you go to the window or the, the little diagram where the video would play, like right under move files, right under copy files, and click that, it'll open up the link to the video. So that is all provided. Thought about that. And Joyce.
So if I'm able to move, when I get to the point where I've moved a whole bunch of files to the shared drive, will that help my storage? Like right now, I'm like 75% full on my individual Google Drive. So
yes, the answer is yes.
okay.
The way Google bills you for your file usage, and I think like most Google Docs are free, like you get at least under Workspace, but all your PDFs and your videos and things like that, those aren't free. So as you move those into Google Workspace, your team share drive, the file transfer, I will double check on that, but I want to say that is the logical thing that would happen. And again, Workspace, oh my God, I found so many illogical things with it, but I will double check that and let you know.
Great. I mean, I know I need to get rid of a bunch of emails too, and all the promotions and all the social stuff, that takes up space. I don't know how much, but anyway, thank you.
Are you storing emails in Google Drive? Because those should be resident on your hard drive. Are you talking about your My Drive space or your hard disk space?
Well, my drive.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I Googled the other day, how can I get rid of some things in my storage? And that was to get rid of your emails, because I just don't even delete emails anymore, but obviously I should.
Oh yeah, they do get stored in My Drive because you can back them up. Yeah, when I had an account like that I ended up transferring to a different account many years ago, and I had like 10 gigs of emails.
Yeah.
So that was very challenging.
Yeah, right. Huh. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else?
I'm just going to put out another comment, and it might not be related to the task at hand, which is moving files and getting ownership. But my concern is, and I'll just raise it as a concern, and we'll see if there's a way to address it, is we might be creating a bunch of individual silos per committees. And like if our committee's doing a bunch of research and finding out information, like I guess I'm wondering best practices for sharing information. So policy knows what transportation's working on, those kind of things. I'm not looking for a solve. I'm just throwing it out there as we move forward with these kind of things.
I mean, these are the questions we should be talking about. So your team wants to have multiple sub teams.
No, I think I'm wondering how our committee can interact with other committees, and first creating multiple people doing the same kind of work as far as understanding what's going on out there today, as far as just, let's just say new policy, like what's a good way for that information, those files to get disseminated first.
Okay. So you're not talking about, you're not
collects in 7 different places.
You're not necessarily talking about file storage, but of just information sharing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
Let me first address file storage real quick. Hold on. Okay. Okay, so here we are under shared drives, and here's all our teams. Like we have food and soil, legislation, CAP. So under the public policy team, if I take a look at who all has access to that, basically the public policy team has access to that. Now, most of the people in public policy, most of the people in all of the committees are also in the public policy Google group. Now, what I will probably do is add the team Google groups into public policy just to make sure, because I think we have maybe half a dozen people that aren't, in that. And that should address sharing there. Now, for all the team specific, hold on, I have to move over to my other account. I have different permissions on based on different accounts. So if we take a look at San Diego Cap Renewable and, oh, come on. Hold on. Let me do it this way. Okay, so if we take a look at Cap Renewable, each team's sorry,
No worries.
there we go. Each team's shared drive is also shared with the public policy team Google group, but they're only listed as contributors. Now, again, we can go back and take a look at what that means, but it basically means they can't be too destructive. They can basically easily access, but they can't necessarily delete a file. Content managers can. And if we find that to be problematic, I can downgrade them to commenters, So as a contributor, you can add and edit files, but you can't delete them. So that's kind of the way I've mapped it out for all our teams shared drives. If that's problematic for you, let me know. And then let me stop sharing. Does that make sense to everybody so far?
Yeah, it does. And it's not problematic. I guess my concern is we might be creating a silo of information and there's other information out there, and just what are the best ways? And it might not be with what we're talking about. It might just be emails and communication as far as how that gets across. But
well, also, once you create a folder or a repository of information in your shared drive, and let's say you create a subfolder called Research XYZ, okay, and that's something you want to share with another committee or something like that. Well, chances are that committee already has access because they're in a public policy team Google group. But you can also then have that committee create a shortcut to policy XYZ in their team shared drive. Now, shortcuts work beautifully. We just don't want them from outside shared drives. Does that make sense? Is that helpful at all? I don't know if I'm
that is helpful. And I think within the community, having those conversations. So I think it's just a matter of, like, I'm doing it for the transportation group and just making sure I have connections with the other groups and how they're setting things up, and the best way to communicate, especially like on policy, would be good.
Yeah. I mean, that could be a combination of emails, but I mean, I personally am not a huge fan of sharing files through emails because, I mean, I get just gargantuan amounts of email, and for me to go back and look through a file or something like that is really difficult sometimes. It's challenging to locate the file in question. I think is much better to, like, again, if you're sharing files or folders between teams, create a central, like, shared stuff or something like that, and have that contain shortcuts to information that you're sharing. So that's a possible organization. I mean, many ways that we can take a look at this. I'm happy to sit down with any of you individually or together to talk in more detail about it, because I want to make sure I'm capturing the essence of what you want and need.
Okay. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a specific example, maybe to make it more tangible. Is, something like if the transportation group's working on something with SanDieg as far as, the 2021 regional transportation plan. And like, there's some policies that SanDieg has to keep to, and they have to, thing. And I'm just wondering how to link with the policy group as far as that. And
are you talking about legislation in that case, or policy because the policy group is basically all of you guys with your committees. So are you talking about working with another committee?
Yes. That's it. Yes. Okay. Yes. I'm looking for ways to overlap with other committees, because right now what it looks like is we're starting to make silos of information.
Okay.
And
Then-
it's not a bad thing. It's just I'm wondering the best way to collaborate with this
Okay,
group.
the first thing you need to do is get the committee leads or chairs to talk about what they want to do. Okay, because before you evaluate how you're going to share or where you're going to store things, you want to talk about what your purpose or intent for that information is, what you want to be able to do with it. Then you look at how to facilitate that. So the first thing is, in this part, I can't define for you what your purpose is and what your goals are. You know, who you want to share it amongst and that type of stuff. And then we can take a look at how best to facilitate that goal.
That sounds good. I think we'll set up per committee, and then we can reach out to other committees and see where we can find those links.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, get the committee talking together. I love that idea. I think it's wonderful to take a look at, you know, how we can all collaborate better together, you know, and share information. But let me know what your goals are, then I can help you look for reasonable or alternative ways, propose alternative ways that you can accommodate those goals. Is that reasonable?
That's absolutely reasonable. Thank you.
Okay. What else we have? Okay, well, I don't
Well,
expect all-
if no one else has a question, I do have a question / comment. So just to make sure we're clear, there's two kind of big things that we're doing. One is the moving all the files from my drive to shared drive. The other is being the lead for your committee and making sure all the committee members know where to save all new files moving forward. And for that, if you're a committee chair, which I know we have a lot, I'm assuming we would want them to put it on the agenda in the next month or two and just alert everyone and show them where to save it. If you're not the committee lead, do you think they should connect with the committee chairs and then
Yeah,
say, hey, put
yeah.
us on the agenda and this is what we'll do?
Correct. I mean, basically everybody here is either, you know, a co-chair or their designee for Google Workspace, right? And thank you for you volunteers for showing up. So the first thing, again, addressing the first primary goal is stop using my drive. Start using your team's shared drive. In order to do that, you might want to go ahead and buffer in, you know, a somewhat logical or organized folder structure to start storing things in, and then you introduce that to your team. I mean, if you're a co-chair, put it on your agenda to discuss. If you're the designate for this, the lovely volunteer, then you address it with the co-chair and tell them that they need to put it on the agenda, and then you can discuss it. I don't expect everybody to understand everything that we covered today. That's why, you know, we're going to provide you all the slides. We're going to provide this recording, and basically, you know, you can digest it at your own pace. I have tried to streamline because you should have seen. I've done so many versions of this presentation. It's not even funny. Just gobs and gobs of hours on it. And this was the one I ended up boiling it down to that I think makes logical sense. I mean, it is a big project, but it's not that technically complicated. You know, if you take a look at that decision tree diagram, that's all there is to it. It's just kind of what goes into each of those steps. So if you go through that and just evaluate where you are in that decision tree, and then look at the video of how to get something done for that that action, then it should work. And again, if you run into things that I didn't cover, because God knows I can't cover it all, let me know and we can address it. It's all good. We can fix everything. Anything else? Well, I want to thank all of you guys for being here today and showing up and being patient with my little memory issues and technical issues. We will get this information out to you as soon as we can.
Thank you so much.
Oh yeah. And hold on, do we still have Rita was going to stay behind a little bit. She wanted to know how to save an email into a document, and I was going to run that through her, run through that with her. If you guys are interested, I basically save emails as PDFs, which then I can, you know, access in a document and stuff. So if you're interested, hang around. Okay.
David wasn't, he left right away.
Yeah, I know. David was like, see ya.
I'm not either, so I'm gonna go, but thank you so much, Marie.
Okay.
Go to-
Bye.
Thank
You
you.
guys.
Yeah, thanks, Mary.